2, and we're live.
All right, we are live with another episode of All Things 3D.
Yeah,
It's
three,
three,
not 40.
yeah,
Yeah.
not 40. Yeah, and it's October 8th, and we are having a really exciting, full house, action-packed
Hey,
roundtable
cool
podcast.
glasses you got on there, Chris.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, since Adam's not here, Phil, can you stay the whole time, or do you have to scoot out early?
Yeah, I suppose I can.
Okay, good. So
I
then we can just.
have a very nice roommate who's offered to switch around my laundry for me.
Oh.
Very
We're
cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to start. I don't know what you see on the bottom of your screens, but we'll start with Brad on the left, then to Brian, Phil, and then to Steven. All right, here we go. Brad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Mr. Welderman.
Mr. Welder.
Yeah. Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, it's a good look on you.
So I guess my name's Brad Hill. I've just been doing 3D printing as a hobbyist for the past couple of years, and recently I'm getting into resin printing and did a Kickstarter for a small open source resin printer. So.
And what's that 3D printer called?
It's called the Little RP, and you can search for it. The Kickstarter page is probably the best information, but there is a website too, littlerp.com.
Steven and I both have one behind us. We're the Little RP support group.
I'm a proud owner of a little RP.
Yeah, like.
Well, actually,
I want to say AAA.
Steve and Brian have one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll create our own AA group. Hi, I'm Mike.
I own a little RP.
I own a little RP. Go around the room. But thank you, Brad. So, anything else? Any upcoming little RP upgrades that you want to talk about?
News?
Well, I mean,
not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, no, I mean at the moment it's just sort of like logistics. So I've had less time, obviously, to play with it so much. I'm sort of setting up kind of like a little bit of a wet lab where I can have a few of them, and I'll have a few people have access to it. So
that sounds kind of scary. A wet lab.
Well, I mean, just like an area an area I don't care if like resin gets on stuff. So it's actually I have an office space at the local hackerspace here, and that's where actually our laser came in a couple days ago. So I'm getting that set up.
Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is your monthly cost to have a little office there?
It's pretty cheap. Well, it's basically it's like dues, but a higher level dues you can get an office space. I think it's like $350 a month, which at least for a few months.
Here in San Luis Obispo. So. Okay.
Like I need to be somewhere near the laser anyways to change out the sheets, so it makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right, Brian, are you ready?
I am ready. So my name's Brian. I'm one of the co-founders here at MadeSolid, where we just focus on the materials in 3D printing. And so we do have a little RP, and it's actually, we're running Firecast on it right now. It's coming out pretty great. We probably have 18 printers in-house right now, including some of the ones that have not come out yet. Like we have an AutoDesk Spark in-house.
You have an AutoDesk Spark?
We do have one.
How did you get that?
So, because we're buddies.
Yeah, you're special.
Are Mike and Chris going to have to bleep that out?
Well, anyway, so I mean, I can provide more feedback on how that one's printing.
Cool.
And then I was at the TCT show in London, so I can provide feedback as to what I saw there. That might be interesting. So, but in general, more so focused on the materials side. And we happen to see a lot of printers because we work with a lot of material printer integration.
So, how's the market? I know that it's, let's say, a challenge. How about an interesting adventure?
An interesting adventure in the market.
It's been almost, what, a year since we had you on our first podcast?
Yeah, it is. We're going through general growing pains right now where the demand is exceeding our capacity, and so we're kind of trying to figure out how to expand, and we're getting a new 3,000 square foot warehouse to just move all the production into. Good things, but
Good problems to have.
yeah, it's tightening up supply chain and all the things that happen when your company becomes real, including the gray hair.
Oh, good for you, man. Good for you. Hold on, it's a rocket ship. That's just like engaging right now. That's where we're at with this whole movement, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, especially the home built stuff. It's just like insane how much just even people day to day asking me, I run my little service bureau, and it's just every day, just the general kind of call volume or inquiry, I think, is just starting to just kind of bubble up, and yeah, it's crazy. We're on a rocket ship right now.
Well, it's good to hear, Brian. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Okay. Well, we've got somebody new, and that would be Phil from Occipital. I've spoke to Adam, and I have also had, what's his name? Their leader, Jeff. Jeff. We had him in an interview.
Months ago he was on. Yeah, and that guy.
And I work with him on
He's a French guy, right?
basis. No, that's Nick.
Oh.
Nick's the French guy. We've had Nick on as well. So, but now we have Phil. So, Phil, tell us what you do at Occipital.
Yeah.
I'm happy to join the surprisingly long list of Occipital employees that have been on here.
Yeah.
So I'm primarily the web designer, developer. I do a lot of our like print and stuff like that. I designed our show booth, and I work with the CV team and the app teams a lot too for little things. But that's pretty much the long and short of it. I'm an enthusiast. And so Occipital is a really good fit for me because this stuff is so, like you said, it's kind of like a rocket ship. Like it's just kind of blowing up in crazy ways.
Isn't it?
I refer to it, at Occipital, I refer to it as the super happy fun slide. I don't know if you remember the episode of the Halloween episode of The Simpsons, but there's one of the Halloween episodes where Mr. Burns is a vampire. Right after the Dracula movie came out, the Coppola Dracula movie, and Bart and Lisa are trying to escape from Mr. Burns' Dracula, and they're running up these stairs, and there's a big switch on the wall that says "Super Happy Fun Slide." Lisa, of course, runs past it, and Bart turns to it and looks and says, "When am I going to be here again?" and pulls the Super Happy Fun Slide and slides right down into Dracula. So. That's kind of what it's like being in our industry right now. I think you gotta. When are you gonna be here again? You gotta pull the switch.
Just ride it while you can.
Ride it while you can. Absolutely.
Except at the end, it's not going to be too good. I don't know if I'd like that analogy.
Depends on how tough Dracula is. Like you got a fighting chance, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, if he's like the master in that strain, I actually read the series of books, and it's a little different than that series that's running on right now, and I'm probably going to give up on it. It's really
for our listeners and our watchers. So just give us a little background on Occipital. Like, what do you guys do? What are you guys working on?
Sure.
What is the of that you guys have your hands in?
Yeah, for sure. So Occipital is we're primarily a software company. We think of ourselves that way, but we've built a really awesome piece of hardware called the structure sensor. That is the first 3D sensor for mobile devices. It's truly mobile. We target the iPad with it, so we have these nice brackets that we've custom designed, as well as the device that attaches securely to the iPad and lets you gives it the ability to grab 3D depth and color from the iPad color camera. I know Mike's a big fan. He's one of our early supporters, and is one of the first. Had brought out one of the first third-party attachments for it, which is awesome. We have one at the office.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I have a little story to talk about.
Yeah. I can't. I can't talk about that one. Sorry, Mike.
That's fine. I don't need you to.
I'm sure you have more than enough to say by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's move on to Stephen. We've had him on before as well. We've done an interview. Plus, he's been part of our roundtable, if I remember correctly. And he is more of the gearhead software type. So why don't you kind of tell us what you do, Stephen?
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Hernandez. I'm the founder of Envision Labs. I'm the author of a software program called Creation Workshop, which is a slicer and host controller for a variety of 3D printers. Specifically, well, it was geared specifically first towards SLA printing. Now I'm starting to get a bit more into SLS, and I've done some back support for FDM-based printers. In my day job, I'm a senior software engineer and prototype engineer doing RF for a telecommunications company. I'm a long-time maker. I'm interested in machining and 3D printing, and I don't know. I'm excited to be here again. So
Cool.
We
Well,
definitely
I'm glad
thank
to
you
have
for
you on.
all your
So you
contributions
wouldn't like
you
to
make.
tell us about this RF company that you're involved with, this communication company, would you?
suffice to say, I have several security clearances that prevent me from saying too much.
Okay. Yeah. I see this guy in dark clothing behind you with a gun. Just kidding. Okay. Well, that pretty
No,
much
but
wraps it up. Yeah.
What is that?
Well, that pretty much wraps it up. So let's go into our news items. Hopefully everybody got an opportunity to see these. HP is working on, well, they've got a few things they're working on. But if you heard back a few months ago, they're coming out with their own 3D printer. And now they're working on transparent glass. So, oh my God, Ducati girl just broke a finger. Never mind. Sorry about that. But I thought maybe we could go into these items. So if you haven't ventured out, maybe take a moment to do so. But from what I could gather, they're using a new technique where they can use transparent glass. Anybody else read about this? Anybody want to help me with this?
Yeah, the articles I was able to bring up all seem pretty speculative. I didn't really see it sourced from HP, but maybe you found something.
Well, actually, if you, I'm trying to bring it up right now. Oh no, I'm bringing up Plus. That's not good.
We're gonna hang out inside of a Google Hangout right now.
That sounds terrifying. I'm actually scared.
Yeah,
That's right. The turtles go all the way down this time.
Do you have the article up? Anybody click on the link?
I just took down the whole internet.
I'm not going to click on it just in case that may happen. So you click on your link there.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, it was a PDF that.
Right.
Anybody else
There we go.
have it?
I've got
Has
that.
anybody heard anything? Because we're all just waiting.
Yeah, it's an abstract talking.
Oh, here we go. This looks. It's at hpl.hp.com. And it says 3D printing of transparent glass. And it's got some people's names, and it's an abstract.
Yeah. So essentially, from what I can understand, is that they're wanting to use silica instead of the materials that we use now, plastic and so forth. So they must be coming up using an SLS technique where you're actually fusing glass instead of plastics or metals, which might be very interesting.
Sure.
Obviously, there isn't much in the news, and hopefully part of the reason that I've titled this is this what's going to be in store? Are we going to start seeing some exotic materials? And is HP, now that they're getting into the game, starting to really show their weight? Obviously, they've got the money. And maybe some of you heard that they're actually splitting into two companies now, the commercial as well as the...
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Brad, did you say again?
I said again.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Phil, you said again.
Yeah.
So when did they split before?
No, they split off. They split off the ThinkPad line, right? Into Lenovo.
Are you thinking about IBM?
No, that's IBM.
Or no. Yeah, I'm thinking of IBM. HP also split like 3-4 years ago.
They split Palm off, right? Or
Yeah. Well, they
bought and then yeah.
Yeah, and then they kind of farmed it out. I don't know if that was true. They just kind of made it
It's like,
so they could have somebody else buy it, which is what actually eventually happened. But as far as a distinct cut between their what they call their enterprise or their business model and their consumer, this is the first time that they've really moved in that direction.
Huh.
And there's some pros and cons behind that. That obviously, if you're going to be moving in that direction, there's already a marriage between the two different halves, and now that you got to segment them, how long is this going to take? How confusing will it be in the long run? You know, how much is it going to stagnate their business model? And obviously, from our perspective, how much is it going to stagnate all these new things that HP supposedly is going to have out? You know, they're supposed to have that printer what, in October or November? Didn't they indicate
Well,
that?
I think they said that they were going to announce something come October.
Okay, it's October. Well, we'll see what happens. But more to the point, obviously they do have a laboratory and they are working on different things. I also read somewhere that originally they had a deal with Stratasys, or was it 3D Systems, some back, and that kind of fell through. So I think it was Stratasys. That's why some of their earlier machines looked a lot like the U-form, right? Is it the smaller models, the Fortis that you have, but the one below that, the U-print.
Or the Mojo. There's all
the Mojo, yeah.
So you mentioned silica earlier. Does that mean we finally have a use for those little bags of beads that come in my boots?
Oh, I thought you were supposed to eat those.
That's a game changer.
Yeah. Well, my
That's
dog
a game
is one of
changer.
those.
Silica gel.
Yeah.
No, I think that
I thought that was for bloating. Oh.
Well, and I think that and Apple has been getting into this whole glass. Didn't they just recently buy a huge glass manufacturing
It was
facility?
Sapphire, and that's been in the news too because the company that they were working with just filed for bankruptcy. So, and part of it, and I think the CEO or somebody sold off a lot of stock beforehand, so that's like a big no-no. And I think what happened is that they were trying to create the actual full glass on the iPhone 6, and either they delayed it, or it wasn't possible, or it wasn't cost-effective. So that's the rumors, but obviously the company behind that, they actually built a plant, 1.5 million square feet or something like that in Arizona. And then Apple just put out that's huge. It's like multiple football fields. And now they've gone bankrupt, and Apple just put out their own letter or statement saying that they'll do whatever they can to back them. So don't know the story behind that. A lot of it's still mystery.
And because I remember watching when Steve gave he went to a city council hearing to pitch the new Apple headquarters campus.
Yeah,
and that's an interesting talk that he gave because he was talking about how unique the building was. It's an interesting talk for people that haven't seen it. Go out to YouTube and watch Steve Jobs give it was in Cupertino, where Apple HQ is, and their concept for the building requires these glass panels that have
curved.
There's nothing like it on Earth yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to engineer this glass or have some new fabrication technology that can make these glass panels that they can use on this round circular building.
Yeah, well, we shall see.
I highly recommend that video too. It's really interesting to see Steve Jobs talk to a city council, right? That's just not something that.
It's if you want to know how to do it like that.
Yeah, do it like that. Yeah,
it's like a lesson. It's like 101 in how to. Yeah, I mean, that guy was just a sales genius.
It's like watching Mr. Rogers.
Fanboys here.
He's calling us out, Phil. He's calling us out.
All right, well, let's move on to the next item. So, I don't know if anybody has read about this in the news, but CTC, which is a Chinese manufacturer, creates 3D printers, got some funding from the city government. I don't remember the actual town. You can go out to the link. But the reason I'm bringing it up, and I was hoping, and I think that's one of the reasons why Formlab actually hasn't joined us, and I need to find my mouse, is did anybody take a look at this article and look at what was in the background?
Yeah, I saw the article there, and it looks like they've been doing a lot of knockoffs, a lot of clones, both of the MakerBot and the Form 1 machine.
Yes, and that was my opinion. And there's another company called Flash Forward, which is another Chinese, which kind of mimic the MakerBot, but some of these models, and I've got it up here, and let's see if I can share my,
don't cross the streams, Mike. Cats and dogs living together.
Yeah, okay, and that'll be the end of life. Okay, consider everybody.
You're showing her. Yeah.
I crossed the streams. I'm sorry, everyone.
You did it. Now I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's a tumor.
And it's funny talking about this article, CTC. I guess today the IMF released or announced that the Chinese economy officially, according to the IMF, for the first time surpassed the USA's global or our national economy. Their economy exceeded ours
Well, there you
today.
go.
That was announced.
Okay,
Which is
well,
funny because the press keeps saying that piracy is going to destroy our economy.
Yeah.
What's the? This is kind of weird.
well, you know, I have a little interesting backstory. But, you know, I was going through this and I said, okay, a lot of MakerBots. And I got down here and said, wait a minute, that kind of looks like my unit right over there, but it doesn't have a red. And I looked closer, and then Chris made a point that looks just like their software, which it is. So, you know, what's funny is that if you read the article, it says we've improved upon it, and I'm wondering what did they improve? And somebody told me these were actually images from the form lab that somebody else got from somebody else's form lab, or form one. And you know, when I was talking about this, obviously I had something happen to me. Phil, as you're aware of, but you can't talk about, I created a product called 4Eyes, which is a lens system which gives you a little bit better, about 20 to 40% better mesh definition with the either the Occipital structure sensor or the 3D Systems iSense. And one day I had somebody who was wanting to order one from Spain, and he said, oh, no need to do that anymore. I found this site, and I found the lenses for it. And I'm saying, well, how did you find the lenses? And he goes, oh, and he sent me the link, and some guy had literally put my entire design, put his logo on it on Thingiverse, and put the source of my lenses. So you don't have to go to China to have people rip you off. It can be in the good old US of A. So, you know, obviously, it's a sore subject for me.
I can say one thing about it, which is the results are quite good with your system.
Yeah, well, that's what makes it even worse. It's
It's the bummer.
It does actually, and I worked very hard to source those lenses. They're an actual glass lens. They're not plastic, which is what a lot of people were playing around with in the beginning. So, and I actually did some math behind it. You know, like the little charts that Brian has behind him. Yeah, I did something like that as well. So I've been really working. Now, the only caveat is if I do go with finally a custom lens, then I will be able to actually go with the proper calculations instead of going with an off-the-shelf, and that might improve things a little bit more. But I appreciate the forum that I was involved with after hearing my story, deciding not to go out and make free ones and still back me. I think that was nice for some people to do that. So.
Oh, and that reminds me, Mike, after I still need to get one of those lenses from you so I could improve my Sense 3D scanner.
Oh, okay.
We will send them out. You know, the interesting part is the lens, which I will not disclose, obviously. There is some sort of production shortage going on. So we have like Mike's been having me order some for him. He's ordering his
from the
wife
Chinese
had
knockoff
orders,
site, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not yet.
His dog Rory
Yeah.
ordered some the other day.
Well, it's funny is that ordering within my own family, they've kind of figured that out, and then they don't tell me directly. They just say, well, you're now delayed a month.
Yeah.
And I call them on it, and they said, oh, it just went out. So,
But, you know, it's kind of an interesting concept. I really love it, and I don't have an iSense quite yet, but as soon as I do, I mean, obviously, Mike's system is just, it takes what that Structure I/O sensor already does, which is great, and basically improves the lens on either your iPad or your iPhone, and just kind of makes it the correct aspect ratio.
It makes up close details a lot. You can get much finer details up close with it.
Sure. Yeah.
It's you get farther away and it's not so good. But like if you're up on a head or reasonably small sized object, like it really doesn't make it look nicer.
And so
just off the shelf,
if you want
slide it on.
to take an analogy, just look. It's like a close-up lens. So you've got a sweet spot that you can work within, and it's good for it. But it's also easy to take off if you've got to do some standard scanning. So it's an accessory. Just like in the film or the video or the camera market. And
that's right.
That was the purpose of it. And
Yeah.
I've been using it a lot, and I like it. And hopefully by the end of this week, I will have some videos up on how to use it and get the best out of it. Because there is a little bit of a learning curve. I liken it to spray painting. You have to kind of stay within a particular parameter of the object. And if you deviate from that, then you can possibly lose track. But kudos to Nick. His latest iteration of the Skinek really knocks it out of the park. And I use a 5 gigahertz band, as well as I think it's an N protocol. So my wireless functionality is like 30 to 60 frames per second. So, it's working really well.
Yeah, are you using color with the new Skinek?
Not as much, but I have used it on occasion. I did some scans of my wife Siobhan with them, and it works okay, but there's some things that I'm going to need to do in order to improve that, and I've been talking with Nick on it, but for the most part, it works. I've found, though, that if you leave the RGB extension lens on when you're using ITZY's 3D, that it actually sharpens the color out of that. So you don't use the lens. Yeah. So I've
never tried it with ITZY's before.
Yeah, it works. You can't. Currently, I've been working with Victor, but you currently can't use the lens with their software over the sensor, but you can use it over the RGB portion. I have been able to trick it into working, but I don't suggest anybody else do it because there is some deformities that occur, like any lens system. But I send a prototype to the Victor, so we'll see what they come out something, maybe an option that puts it to better use. But they also limit their mesh detail. So even if it did work,
there's a ceiling on those,
50,000 faces, and I'm doing anywhere between 700,000 to 2.5, depending on how large the surface is.
2.5 million.
2.5 million
facets.
Yeah.
Facets. So and that's where the detail comes in. If he's removing it, then it doesn't really make sense to use it.
Yeah.
But it does, in my opinion, peak out the color. It's kind of like a peak adjust, and because it's you'll have to try it for yourself.
Well, and I think as you guys, as you know, working at Occipital,
does anybody else know what we're talking about right now?
No, I don't.
I think Steven does, and actually Brian was down here, and one of the most popular Sketchfab models is Brian.
Oh yeah, Brian's head is and I think it was one of Brad's better
models that he printed.
It's cool. It's sold.
Yeah, it's on ponies and everything, and you know what? One of my our CTO got a model of the Thinker and put me on top of it. And,
Bring it up.
Bring what up?
Bring up his head.
That's so awesome.
On Sketchfab.
Okay, well.
I'd be flattered.
All right, so somebody keep.
But I do want to talk about the article you posted.
Okay.
Since you put it up, I think that that's a frustrating thing for us. So when we're innovating and we're trying to create materials that are different from what's out there, like a main question we get from a lot of our investors is, well, how are you going to protect that? How are you going to stop the Chinese from ripping it off? And right now there is no answer to that. And I think it's part of like the dilemma as an innovator. You go on Kickstarter and you can't stop certain people from buying your printer, and then you have to fulfill that, and you know they're going to rip you off. I mean, we can just say we're not going to sell into China to try to lengthen that a bit, but it doesn't stop someone from buying it in California and sending it back.
Yeah,
sure.
And like, recently.
And the answer to that, is you can't stop the clones and you can't stop the pirates. What you really have to do is just continuously keep innovating to stay ahead of the curve. That's the hard answer right there.
That's what my dad always said. He said, "Don't worry about them. Just keep going. Just
keep going.
Work on selling what you've got."
And then everybody else will be playing catch up.
Right.
His dad was also the owner of Pontiac.
Sorry, I think that's a little bit of a fantasy, though.
Thanks, man.
Well, I have a
problem
good.
It's Saturn, by the way, Brad.
Innovation takes money. And
Not
you're
necessarily.
making money on you.
Innovation does take a lot of money, and from our perspective, we sell to people buy material from us all the time. We have no idea what printers are putting it in. They can be putting it in an object printer. They can be putting it in a clone. Not because I'm American but just out of frustration, I typically don't like providing a lot of technical support to someone who's using a clone for just so many reasons. I have no idea what they're using. There's not as much
No,
consistency
that's a
between them.
support nightmare.
It's
You
a
have no
support
idea
nightmare.
what the quality of the thing they're using it on is, and
Right.
it's your time, which is valuable. Like,
Exactly.
you can be doing better stuff, right?
Exactly.
Well,
So
your
you don't want
time's
to be
more valuable probably than a bottle of resin. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So you don't want to be a jerk, but at the same time, you're like, well, I don't. You're using a Flash Force 3D. I can't really tell you what to do with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and Brad, I think you are right. The innovation does take money, and that's also primarily because it takes time too. But there's the old analogy. I bring this up sometimes at work, where in the 80s, Eddie Van Halen used to play with his back to the crowd because there were so many guitar players sitting in the crowd just trying to cop his guitar licks. And he was like, "Screw you guys, these are mine. Like, you're gonna have to try to guess how I did this." And that's what a lot of tech is based on, right? Like the lock-in of like we try to obfuscate what we think is valuable and stuff. But sometimes that's a bummer to me because what makes Eddie Van Halen valuable is not that his sweet licks, right? It's that he came up with them. Like that's what makes them valuable. Like you can steal as many guitar riffs as you want, but the actual value is making of those up and being able to do them. And that's the expensive part, is the time and your knowledge, your understanding of a thing that lets you come up with this awesome stuff. And it's a huge like paradigm shift of the scarcity culture to the culture of ubiquity, where there's a lot of like weird, scary, like just kind of people losing their shirts on stuff, and that could happen to like practically anyone. And I think part of the solution is trying to think about it like that. Think about it like it's not necessarily just the thing that you make right now that is valuable. It's the stuff that you're going to be able to make because you understand this thing so well.
Right.
But it's still scary.
So Phil, do you have anything on the market?
On Sketchfab?
Well, just in general, do you have anything, any invention or product on the market?
Stuff that I've personally made?
Yes.
Nothing that I'm selling right now. I've been working for Occipital for a little over a year, and that takes enough of my time. But I've been designing stuff and since I was probably 18 or so. And yeah, I've had a lot of stuff stolen over the years, and it made me really mad. Especially, it's way easier for me to be kind of blasé about it now. But like when that freelance work was paying my bills, I was a lot more upset about people stealing my design work.
Well, that's the point. If you're trying to make money at it and somebody steals it, and then actually, obviously, it robs your pockets. It's like somebody coming up to you and taking directly out of your pocket.
And
so even if you come up with the next design and you don't have the funding in order to do the research, or more importantly, get the parts together to come up with prototypes and then come up with a production line, that's the issue that I have. It's not. If you don't have the money to begin with, and as Brian said, if your backers are saying, "Oh, how are you protecting yourself?" I don't know. There's a lot of issues there, and we've had a patent system for years, and even though it's somewhat broken, but it is a patent system that's being used worldwide because a lot of people recognize that there has to be some protection, and even though many governments don't seem to recognize except their own. It's interesting that the Chinese seem to be working off everybody else's, but they're now pursuing patent violations with many American companies now, Apple being one of them. So they're very good at being litigious when they need to be, when they think they're right, but obviously they all have different ways of thinking of things.
We are definitely entering a new paradigm and seeing new problems as a result of additive manufacturing. I mean, now that you can take somebody's design and you can upload it and make it open source, and you could upload it to a free repository where somebody could go freely download it and then print it at home on their on their 3D printer. this is a new problem. This isn't a problem we've ever seen before. So what are
Right.
we going to do to solve it? And I don't think that there's like an easy solution. I don't necessarily think that like legislation
Not
or
yet,
law
anyway.
is going to be the solution, because it never does. In fact, a lot of times what it does is just makes the problem worse, creates black markets. You know,
Makes
that's
it
really
last longer.
yeah, and what it does is it just feeds the prison industrial complex. It feeds like the bureaucracy. Really, that's what it really ends up growing as a
Right with
result
you.
of legislating against it. I think what we need is like some new solution that more relies on technology, like that has created the problem in the first place, right?
Well,
it's
that's what
it's
you're
a problem.
seeing. I mean, there's encryption techniques and protection techniques that they've tried in the past that other people defeat. I mean, this is a vicious cycle. So
This is what
I
I
don't
think
have any
SolidWorks,
Not
Autodesk. I think
necessarily.
coming forward in CAD tools when you're building a product in a CAD tool, I think they're going to start building in tools to make them either hard to use additive to manufacture, or harder to reverse engineer, or they're going to start. We're going to start seeing that kind of thing built into these CAD tools. I think.
I don't think that stuff is really going to help much. It's a bummer, and like it's more than a bummer. It's like actively harmful and scary, like to creators like Mike. I think the real problem here is just we don't know what to do. We don't have the tools to make this make sense. Our society has for so long been based on it's just as hard, or almost it's some fraction of as hard to make the second one as it is to make the first one. And now it takes everything to make the first one and almost nothing to make the second one. And we just don't know what to do with that. We're still babies at this. Like we've been doing things the other way for 2,000 years.
Daddy
and now
Big
suddenly
is the one that makes stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see more of this.
And now suddenly it's not hard to do that. And a lot of stuff is going to go down in flames, and hopefully, knock on wood, Occipital and Mike and Brad and Brian and Steve are not those people, but it's going to be we're pretty pregnant on a weird new age, and it's going to be a crazy birth.
Well, Occipital has a big, heavy, what do you want to call it, ominous figure above them right now. And if we talked about it last year, and that PrimeSense was purchased by Apple.
Yeah.
You know where the Occipital technology comes from, and I tried to bring that up, and both Nick and Jeff kind of sidestepped me on that, so I won't push you into providing me answers there. So, I mean, there is big concerns, especially when another big person comes in. What will that do to the little person?
I can say one good thing, which is I'm not at all worried about that.
Yeah, and Jeff doesn't appear to be, and you're still selling these things, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we are. You buy one right now, it'll be at your house in 2 to 3 days.
Okay, there you go, Chris. I did that when he got his little RP. It's yours. You can have it.
I think the solution is to just make your stuff out of cheese, because the Chinese are lactose intolerant.
Excellent idea.
Also,
but I'm lactose
We need
intolerant.
big figures like Brad.
It's hard to make cheese.
Yeah, that cheese isn't that easy either. Yeah. So anybody else want to chime in before we move on to the next item? I mean, so I didn't want to make this Mike's rant. He's already ranted enough about it. I'm moving on.
Hear the end of it.
Phil has a good point. You just have to keep innovating. Here I'm worried about the Chinese knocking this off and making it, and I got somebody crazy enough to say, here's his design, put my name on it, and give it away for free. I didn't understand that. That was surprising.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Phil.
I just don't understand that kind of person.
No.
Well,
you
and
want to spend the time to do that, right?
And the person that did it to Mike, the most weirdest part was that he did it on a public repository under his own personal identity.
Uh-huh.
And he does CAD work as a company. He owns a company doing this as another. Well, he has a product.
Well,
I won't mention
he's got other people
He's got a
involved.
product that he obviously doesn't want to have other people rip off.
Yeah, and he has no patents on it, so that's really interesting.
Again,
Okay.
this goes back. Okay, one more thing. Okay, just one more thing is this kind of goes back to
Steven
we need
looks
to hold
like he wants to move on.
ourselves. and other people to a higher moral standard. This is like society kind of fighting. You know, this is like
Well, I'm just
kind of.
glad we don't have the ability to just go over and club somebody to death like we
There
used
you
to.
go.
So, well,
See?
I shouldn't hold my
Well,
breath
I
on
hold
that.
you to a high
Okay,
moral standard. to not do
NanoSteel
that.
enters the additive manufacturing. Anybody read about this? We're not even getting through the news yet.
Okay.
Jeez.
Well, you know, we're having fun.
Okay. So
yeah, I read about
it?
this article here, and it looks pretty standard fare as, you know, SLS printing process. They're using, you know, an SLS process to put together metal powder, which has got some sort of binder on it, and then they later kiln fire it to produce, you know, solid functional parts. The exciting thing for this is, you know, it's just another company that's doing this at a cheaper level here, and I'd really like to see at what point it's going to be possible for, you know, the average home consumer to have a metal printing printer. Now, this is obviously, you know, a multi-stage process here, but it seems to be getting closer and closer every couple months.
How fine are the details you can get with this metal stuff?
Yeah, I don't.
Well, are you talking at a professional level or on this level?
Both actually. I'm very ignorant as regards the metal printing stuff.
Well, DMLS, I think they get down to 40 micron or even finer. The DMLS, I talked to a guy. He does this
Sounds
in
pretty damn
Texas.
good.
Yeah, and he what they have to do. He was telling me about the process. He makes the materials that go in these machines, like third party, and basically they take metal and they, I guess, cryogenically like freeze it so they can grind it because it has to be really specific.
Like Walt Disney's head?
Is that what they did with Walt Disney's head?
Yeah,
No.
actually, yeah, I think they did freeze his head, but that's another. No.
What?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they actually ended up grinding it up, but I'm pretty sure they did freeze it.
Didn't they do that with Ted Williams?
I don't know.
Ted Williams, and then there's somebody else that they did, some famous sci-fi person as well.
Well,
so.
and like the father of PGP, who was that? The PGP, the father of PGP encryption, just recently passed away, and they just dunked him into a cryogenic chamber.
Yeah, I think
I'm
that's.
spacing on that. I feel bad about myself.
Okay, so looks like it's something neat.
I don't know the DMLS how fine. I thought it was 40 microns. Sound right?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the article here.
But I don't know
Yeah,
about
I suppose it's like really dependent on the spot size of the laser and also the particle size that you're trying to fuse together.
So that's what he was. I guess what was is one of the hardest parts is you have to grind it into this really specific particle size.
I see.
Obviously.
Right.
So that's
And
one
then
of the
depending on the DLMS process, you know, either you know, the entire bed can be heated up, so then the laser has enough energy to basically fuse the metal particles together, or it's got to be there's some binder coating on the metal particles that will temporarily bind them together, and then the part is then later kiln fired, if I'm remembering correctly. So there's a couple different variations of the same kind of technology, but it's all sort of SLS-based technology where you're using a laser, selective laser sintering on a bed of powdered material.
almost like welding it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or tack welding and then using a larger or more overall temperature to do the final fusing.
Unbelievable.
So what do you think the advantage of this is, Steve?
Well, there's a lot of different advantages. I mean, having metal parts, durable parts like that, especially if you could do it from a single process. So if you can just do direct to metal as a single step without having to do kiln firing, well then now you've got functional, usable metal parts that you can do in all sorts of things. You could 3D print an engine for your car if you wanted, or a lamp, or I don't even know, anything you can make out of metal, really.
Well, that leads us to our first actual discussion item, and that is SLS. So, Steve, why don't you lead us off with it? So, essentially, currently, if you've got a lot of money or experimenting with it, SLS is kind of out there.
Well, I could certainly talk about experimenting with SLS. You know, there's been actually a couple different companies lately that have been bringing SLS-based machines to the market. And I think Syntratech is one of them, who's got a machine around 5K. I actually just grabbed the domain name Build Your Own SLS, and I've got it redirecting to my buildyourownSLA.com web forum. So I recently just did a LaserShark plugin. So the LaserShark is a laser driver board for doing like video displays and stuff. And that's all fun and dandy. So some people actually wanted to use a UV laser with their SLA. And it's pretty much the same process to do laser for SLS. So you'll take a model, you'll slice it up, you control the laser path either for SLA or SLS, and then you've got a machine that can build it. So there's actually 2 different users on my site right now who are actually actively building SLS-based machines, and I'm providing long software support in Creation Workshop.
So where are we at with the intellectual property? I know that we talked about it earlier podcast.
I'm probably stepping on all sorts of patents. I have no clue.
Well, but supposedly some of these are expiring. Anybody been keeping up with it? Is this the case? Now that we're starting to see machines, is that what's happening? Brad, you want to add to this? Brian?
I mean, I think one of the problems with the patents is nobody really knows. Like, unless you hire an IP firm to investigate it, it's like there's no real easy way to tell like what patents are out there.
And even then, you're like pretty sure, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they'll give you an opinion. They won't say you're good. Right. They'll say,
because
well,
it's not possible to say you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best way to find out is to build something and then have somebody sue you, and you'll know exactly which patents you're violating. See how sued you get. Yeah.
I mean, that's the problem with the little RP is, I mean, I have this, this tilt add-on, but it's like, in what capacity can I release or sell it? I mean, there are other people who have, who are selling printers who they did not develop that
right.
technology themselves and are selling it. That doesn't mean I'm safe. That just means they haven't gotten sued yet.
Right. And I think you're actually pretty safe, Brad, because you're just the little guy. They're going to go after the HPs or, any of the other big companies who offer some sort of tilt mechanism.
Well, and I think like what I'm going to do is it's going to be a end user, assembled / manufactured upgrade. They'll have to like solder in something on a board. They'll have to assemble the, so I just avoid selling a complete, a completely assembled functioning unit, and I think you'll be fine. And yeah, I mean I am small fish, so I shouldn't be super concerned, but I'm pretty paranoid individual, so it's something I think about.
I think
Brian, you let the cat out of the bag a little bit earlier about the Autodesk Spark machine. So since you've actually, since you kind of played with it, do you see anything different that they're doing, or is it just more polished?
It's more polished. The build platform's probably twice the size of yours, Brad. It's
well, how does it compare to the Formlabs?
It's much smaller, but the detail is amazing. I mean, they're doing a really good job with their software. The software is what should have been great on the machine, and the software is great. It's open source on the resin side, which makes it easy for us, but it's also producing really high quality prints. I don't know how much of that is our black resin or how much of that is their printer, but the level of detail that they're able to get to and the way they're able to make prints survive is amazing. They're not doing a pill like everyone else. They're doing a slide. But the slide isn't like the B9. It's more of like a circular slide.
Oh, that's interesting.
Instead of sliding it in a straight path, they slide it in an arc.
They slide in an arc, right? And that's different than the B9
enough to get around a patent.
Exactly, that's a patent dodge right there.
So I'm coming out with one that does it in an S shape, like a snake.
Right, but they also that is not.
Why don't you do it like a kangaroo? Never mind.
Like a parabola, like a
Yeah, exactly.
It's not an arc. It's a kind of arc.
Well, the orange maker just goes in a circle, presumably.
Right. I mean, the pill process.
What's going on?
I'm flipping between channels. We're going nuts here. Okay, so what you're saying is that the Autodesk actually has a good product here. Now, is it laser-based or projection-based?
It is DLP-based.
Okay. And this is all contained in the base?
Yeah. How much of this are we allowed to talk about?
So is it a DLP Pico projector inside the base?
Well, I'm
I don't
thinking.
think it's-
No, I
I think that's where I'm not allowed to talk much about.
No,
You know, it might be
it's an
laser based.
It's an iPad Retina.
I think it's
Maybe one of TI's new UV LED like DLPs.
Right.
They have reference ones you can buy. They're like $1,500 or
Well,
something.
that's
like
probably what it is. So
The point is, I think that I don't think they even know the price point's going to be in the machine, but I think that the detail will be better than the better than the Project 1200 with open source resin capabilities and a much larger build platform. So
So
what's
does it?
the XY resolution on that printer, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't know. I don't have their full specs. They didn't give us a spec sheet.
How about give us a general comparison? You probably printed the same part, like your head, on multiple machines. How did it look quality-wise?
The detail was a lot better. Even at, I think we're printing at 50 microns. We printed an owl, or falcon. We printed an Eiffel Tower. So you know the Eiffel Tower at the top of it, where it gets super detailed. That's where the Formlabs one will start messing up, and it won't get all the holes. This one had every single hole that you'll see in the file for the Eiffel Tower, even all the way at the top, like the very tiny crosses at the very top of the tower.
And how large was this tower?
It was probably about that size.
About 4 inches?
Yeah, it was about 3 inches tall.
3 inches?
And,
Well,
3 inches tall.
Wow.
It was really good. We wrote a blog about it recently. You guys can check that out. Just go to blog.madesolid.com. I think it was like 1 or 2 blogs ago. And we have
send
pictures.
me the link and I'll make sure I put it in the show
You
notes.
have pictures of the machine.
I don't. Let me see. Did we do pictures of the machine?
Yeah. Well, whatever you have, Brian, go ahead and send me some links, and I'll make sure it gets in our show notes. Wow, we've got a scoop tonight.
We do have a picture of the machine.
Excellent.
So they had this at the Maker Faire in New York, right?
I wasn't there. I'll have to ask one of my team.
I haven't heard that as well.
I thought somebody said they did have
All
one.
right, I put it inside the chat here.
Okay.
But they're making it somewhere in San Francisco at the Wharf or something was where
They are. I mean, they have like they have one of the piers out here. I think Pier 9 or something like that is mostly AutoDesk.
So if anybody wants to go and, get the scoop, that's where you got to go. It's Pier 9.
Yeah, there's a picture of the Eiffel Tower on this blog. You guys can check it out.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
We
Over
will
at
do that.
MadeSolid.com.
Excellent. And that will be in the show notes. So since we're now talking about Autodesk, let's go on to the next question, which is, now that we've got Autodesk, we've got HP coming in, we just have the new Dremel FDM printer, which actually is a flash, and you've got the Arduino. I've heard that Fujitsu is not on the market. Now that you're getting all the big boys into the market, is this going to be a good thing or a bad thing or what?
Not all at once.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that Dremel wasn't in there earlier. But it kind of makes sense because those big old companies they tend to steer a little bit more slowly. Where you look at it now and you're like, yeah, Dremel, duh. But it probably took years of 1 or 2 people inside of the company being like, we have to do this.
Well, that they went to FlashFort, which is this Chinese company I was talking about earlier, and pretty much it's called the FlashFort Dreamer or 3D Dreamer or something like that, and they just rebadged it and only put a single. Label. I'm sorry.
It's a white label then.
Yes.
Basically. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so is the Arduino. It's just a share bot.
Fair enough.
So, Steve, you got anything you like Steven or Steve?
I prefer Steve, actually.
Okay, Steve, you got something to add to this?
Well, I think it's really interesting that a lot of these large companies are starting to get into it because I think we're going to start seeing standardization of prices and features. So, we've seen, different printers out there with multiple extruders for several colors and support materials. We've seen things like the auto bed levelers, and, there's a lot of new kind of things coming out, like the paste extruders for clay or chocolate or frosting or printing pancakes or things like that. So I think the real change that we're going to see is pretty much the increase in visibility of these devices as they enter into the consumer and prosumer market. They're starting to pop up places like Staples and Home Depot and places like that. So, I think it's really just getting people familiar to the idea and used to the idea of, they're going to be seeing a lot more 3D printers just in their general life. They'll go to the store, they'll go to Home Depot, and it'll be printing off a 3D custom part for somebody soon. Things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you've got UPS now really moving forward. I read about this about 8 months ago. I'm sorry, about 6 months ago that they were going to start doing a project, and I think they're using Fortis. What's the model right below the Fortis 250?
Yeah, they're using some Stratasys. They have Uprint, Mojos.
Yeah, I think that's.
They even have MakerBots at some of them.
Right.
Just
so
MakerBots,
so then you can go in there.
UPS has actually come to me and said, "Hey, we have a MakerBot, but we can't print this part. Can you print it?"
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I think we're going to see, even building on what Steve said, is the software, because people are finding out, hey, there's like 3 flavors of software, and some of them are open source. Like, Steve, your software is open source still, or?
Yes.
I know you can download. Yeah,
my software is open source, but I do build custom plugins for vendors who want to customize the software for their specific machines.
And just like Brian's writing a materials rocket ship, I think you're writing a software rocket ship right now. I think that you're going to have like...
What's this rocket ship?
The rocket ship of success.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. We're going to 3D print one later.
Well, I think that there's a lot of these companies are figuring out, okay, well, the hardware is kind of like the same across a lot of these, but what's really makes, like, what makes a Fortis is the software, or what makes the Stratasys machine, print better than some others is the software, or what makes even one machine that's on a Repetier machine, host, or a creation workshop machine, what makes one print better than the other is somebody configured it better. That just tweaked the settings a little bit. So you'll find that, like, I think that that's another huge area where we're going to see a lot of development is a lot of these big companies hopefully are going to push a lot back into the open source movement and go onto GitHub and download Steve's repo and say, oh wow, we could do this, and it's just getting
hopefully they just won't flat out steal what I've done and rebrand it. So
yeah,
and then sue you in a year.
Yeah, and then sue me for it later.
Okay, let's not manifest that. That's not going to happen.
Oh, that being said, actually, there are a couple Korean companies and an Italian company who've blatantly stolen my software, made a couple tweaks, and put it out there. I'm not going to name any names right now, but...
give it in the show notes.
It is what it is.
It's Kim Jong-un Workshop.
That's right.
That doesn't sound Italian.
Gangnam Workshop.
Italian name.
Wait, it's Korean.
Huh? What was that? I can't.
What was that, Brad?
What, Brad? Was that you? No?
Didn't say anything. For those of you that want to know how to get a hold of Brad, just go on IRC. Goopy Plastic. Guy is there all the time to help you out with your DLP SLA printer. If you get one of those little SLA printers, he'll be there. He's like
right.
He's like a support guy that's like 24/7.
Well, I mean, if anybody, this isn't not really 3D printer related, but if anybody uses IRC or has a desire to, there's a product called IRC Cloud, and it's pretty cool. Like, you can have it run on your phone. It does push notifications. You can have it like buzz you if somebody says your name or something like that. So it makes IRC a little bit more usable.
I have to look into that. IRC Cloud. Hey, that looks like a neat Costco rack you got back there.
I know. They actually ran out of them. Like this is like my fit. I have like 5 or 6.
$70 are great. I've got a few too. Like that. I'm changing.
Like IKEA tables.
Yeah, we don't have an IKEA.
Well, and for those people that are tinkerers, our listeners, we have a lot of tinkerers at home that use or are trying to work on their 3D printers, figure out. We always have tips and tricks every week on our product in review.
3D in review.
But I'll
Fridays.
say the IRC is coming back in a big way. Not like it really ever went out for TrueGeek, but I think it's starting to make its way. People are figuring out, okay, this is a kind of a live channel that we can go and talk to other geeks and figure out what's going on. And Steve, how do you keep track of? Because I know you're in the IRC channel. You run this bulletin board with all the build your own SLA. Are you there?
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't go on IRC really at all.
Oh,
I
you
just
don't.
kind of visit my forum several times a day, answer questions. You know, a lot of people still email me directly, and actually that's exactly why I started the forum, was so many people were emailing me. I couldn't handle all the emails, so now,
Wow.
most of the time nowadays I just direct people to the forum, and then
Yeah.
everybody just answers each other's questions, and if they don't, I'll chime in, or things like that.
I'm not a big IRC man either.
I
I'm
like it.
I'm just an old guy. Can't read it fast enough. Goes
Yeah, I
by.
mean,
And
well, one of my
Yeah, I used to
favorite
do IRC like years and years ago.
You
But,
know what
That's
is a
the
great
funny
when I was
channel?
younger.
Is Spark Fun. If you are a Spark Fun fan, I'm a Spark Fun fan.
oh, definitely.
Yeah, so they're out of Boulder, Colorado. They make all kinds of little electronics components and stuff, and they're a great company, and they have a phenomenal IRC channel. You can go in there. There's maybe like 100 or 200 people in there at any given time, and like if you're building a little whatever and you have no idea what you're doing, like me, you can just like chime in like, hey, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, and I'm using this SparkFun product, and they'll just give you. It's like calling tech support, but way better because it's in writing. And
Wow. Well, maybe you need to visit some other IRC chats. You do something like that and said, "Newbie, get
Yeah,
out of
oh,
here.
yeah,
Who the
yeah.
hell are you?"
You'll get ostracized otherwise.
Alternatively, you could use it as a great platform for crowdsourcing free designs.
Thanks, Steve. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next item and bring Phil into this. So essentially, we've been talking about 3D printers. We've got a lot of people getting into this, and I haven't really noticed any real big names or movement in the 3D scanning. I mean, you've got like Fuel 3D supposedly coming out with something soon, maybe. You've got obviously Occipital with their structure sensor, and you know, you've got the other people. I can't think of their names right now, but they're like $10,000-$20,000. And then I've got a Next Engine, which is a static scanner, and then you've got what's the other one? You got this guy, and I want to say Hungaria, but it's not.
The David.
Yeah, there's the David laser scanner.
Have you tried to work with that?
Scanner.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
not personally.
It's very difficult to work with, but there's a lot of these tabletop scanners that are coming out. There's somebody, I want to say Hungary, but it's like Lithuania or something like that. He's really upset a lot of people. He originally had something that was going to be like $200. It's a simple product, but he pretty much took the money and has elevated to a new level. But then also you get a lot of problems with that, and he still hasn't released a product. And so there's that product coming out. Matter and Form, which we did an interview with up in Canada, they finally released theirs. It's a nice looking product, but man, it takes a long time to actually scan something. And then I own the Next Engine, but you're looking at $5,000 once you get the software. But other than that, there really hasn't been any advances. Is there just no motivation to do that, or is it just difficult? Bill?
Number one, it's hard. It's hard to do, and a lot of the big companies, especially the big companies, they just want to own the whole pig. Like, they just want to have the whole system be like this totally closed, we own everything environment. Especially when you get up into like your HPs and stuff like that. They really hate having external dependencies, and I think that is part of why it takes them a long time to sometimes get on to certain stuff. I think there are also a lot of different use cases, and I think nobody really knows. There's a lot of uncertainty with regards to like, okay, how do we take stuff from real life and put it into these digital spaces? And it is kind of scary because you got to make a bet. You have to make a choice. You have to make a bet. You can't just say, oh, let's try all these 50 different ways to do it. You got to pick one and just do a really, really good job on it. And that's sort of what we started to do with the structure sensor. You can expand that later. You can maybe try other stuff, but you do one thing really, really well, especially when you first started out, and that's what we did. And you know, like the MakerBot has their replicator turntable thing. The results look, you know, the results on that look pretty good. Of course, it's, you know, severely size limited and stuff like that. But
there's a
if
lot
you're
of disadvantages to it,
you know,
besides the price when it first came out. But that's another story.
Yeah. But you know, I'm not talking smack on MakerBot. They're you know, they're
Okay,
for some reason well, I just it's funny to me because again, like I said earlier, we're still babies at this. Like it's such a small and new market that stuff like a, you know, a tabletop turntable scanner is in the same, you know, market category as the structure sensor, which is this totally mobile, you know, take it wherever you want kind of thing. And I think they're very different products. I think they're as different as, you know, an iPad and a television set.
I totally agree with you on that, and obviously I own several types of scanners as well as built a few of them, so I have a little experience, plus my own background. About late 80s, early 90s, I designed one of the first real-time video digitizers, so I do have some experience with this, and kind of went into...
You use an Amiga?
I did. How did you guess? Product was called Perfect Vision, for those of you who used Amigas.
Oh, nice. With a video toaster unit?
I've actually, exactly. I've been trying to find a working video toaster for a long time that isn't like, because they've become cult items now.
Right.
And so they're like really expensive.
Yeah. Well, and when they work.
We're keeping it real, nerd. We're keeping it real on all things 3D right now.
That's right.
Well, so I do have a little experience, but in my... either there are some real patents being held, and I wish I could remember the name of that one company that sells those horrendously expensive portable scanners that do a fairly good job, and that was kind of the inspiration for my lens system, is that, you know, and then obviously you got Fuel 3D, which uses a stereoscopic technique, so they're moving forward with something, but
Trimble, Konica Minolta,
well, yeah,
they make laser scanners,
they make
for field
use.
Field work, you know.
If you've got the money to sink on them.
Yeah.
But again, there might be patents pushing that.
It's like Phil said, it's a massive undertaking, and you have to commit. It's not like, oh, well, let's go try out photogrammetry. It's like serious math work and serious computer programmer work that's like way over most people's heads.
I can vouch for that. I've actually built several laser scanners before and a vision-based system for trying to digitize things in 3D, and it's a very...
What library did you use?
OpenCV.
CV. That's what a lot of people are, and it's notoriously slow.
Well, I used OpenCV just for the video camera-based stereoscopic model, where I was actually using a projector, of like a video projector. But the laser line generation algorithms and just using the video camera with that, those are simple enough, and that's sort of what MakerBot is doing with their turntable. But you know, it's got a lot of different limitations caused by, you know, the reflectivity and specularity of the surface. It can't get very dark objects scanned very well. It can't do transparent objects. It's got limitations. So.
Oh, you need something.
If you want to overcome those limitations, then you've got to move to different type of scanning technologies, and those are usually more algorithmic intensive. Yeah.
And that's why I think another area we're going to see a lot of growth is maybe people that are taking, you know, maybe 2 or 3 of the technologies and then kind of blending them together and like eliminating the error based, like, so it'll have 3 different technologies, whether it's like laser line, photogrammetry, or even the IR sense, let's say.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and then they kind of like blend the 3, and so like if one artifact shows up on one scanner but not on 2, it'll just eliminate that, you know. But and then I could see kind of mixing the technologies, which I haven't personally seen yet. I mean, I've seen the RGB camera now that can do texture mapping over a 3D object, but I haven't seen like mixing laser scanning with photogrammetry.
Right.
Yeah,
well, if you look at it like now, and you know, these massive companies like Dremel and stuff are just now getting into the 3D printer space. Think about how long, you know, MakerBot and RepRap and all that's been around. You know, it's like 5-7 years. Like,
Yeah.
we've just been doing 3D scanning stuff for like a couple, you know.
That's
So
crazy.
it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
Well, and we're seeing progress. Just
Yeah, always.
not fast enough for me. Okay. So let's move on to the last item, and we'll just kind of skip since we talked a lot about patents and Mike's rant earlier. Let's kind of move on to the more uplifting thing, literally, and that's NASA. We
Yay,
wanted
NASA.
to say, yay, went up in the air, but I don't think it did yet because who's our fan boy?
Oh, Elon.
Elon.
I'm a big Elon.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite Elon quote is, he wants to die on Mars, just not on impact.
Okay. Well,
Elon Musk, what a visionary.
well, obviously he's a fun guy. I saw him in an interview. I don't know what I saw him in.
We'll have
but
to
it
have
was
him
kind of
on.
fun. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's funny. I want to get the guy from something Savage. What's his name?
Fred Savage?
Is it Fernand?
From
Not
Wonder
Fred.
Years?
No.
I
The
don't
other,
know.
the guy
Adam
from
Savage.
Adam Savage.
Oh, from Mythbusters.
I want to get him on because he's big. I want to get the guy something Rick Baker. He does some really cool 3D things.
Great visual effects artist, one of the best ever.
Yeah, one of the best, but he did what was one of the reasons I wanted to get him on, and I actually was communicating with him, but I guess I'm just not a big enough fish yet, was he created this decrepit Popeye using a MakerBot, and then obviously taking his own. And you have to go out to ZBrush, their website. They've got a lot of great stuff to begin with. But
These artists are insane what they come up with.
But if you go out to Rick Baker's blog, I think he has a site, you can see this thing, and you said, wow, that was done on a MakerBot. It's funny that MakerBot didn't pick up on this guy because that would have sold them hundreds. I mean, this thing was just dramatic. So I wanted to get him on, and he said, well, I got a lot of other things going on right now, and I don't know if I could spare 30 minutes. And it was okay.
Speaking of Adam Savage, can I get a plug-in?
Sure. For who? Adam?
So yeah. So are you guys familiar with Tested.com?
I am. I remember.
So they're doing a live show here in San Francisco, October 25th, and we've been talking to them. I'll be there. Adam and Jamie will be there. It sounds like a really good time. It's going to be at the Castro Theater, one of my favorite venues in the city. It's a gorgeous old building. I'm going to bring a structure sensor and maybe try to scan some of the interior there.
You know you guys got my 4 eyes up there too, right?
We do.
Yeah. And how much are tickets to this thing?
Scan his face.
I have no idea. I'm not making any money on it.
No, but where do we go to sign up?
Tested.com.
Tested.com.
Yeah.
Well, I won't be up there. Well, Phil, if you wouldn't mention All Things 3D, tell them that we'd love to have them on. We've got these great little coasters here. We give them out, And if you're new to the show, by the way, who hasn't gotten their tool set yet? Because I've kind of fallen behind.
I'm missing out here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, you never got yours, right?
Dropping the ball.
I am. I apologize.
Right.
I've had.
They'll get 'em.
Send me a reminder, Phil. You'll also get one, but you'll also get some of these cool coasters.
Love one. I need coasters in the house.
That's why I made them.
Awesome tool sets from iFixit. You probably know them.
Oh yeah,
they're right here on the Central Coast. They're our neighbors and friends of ours.
So they've been kind of providing us tool sets.
They have a killer little driver set that's like perfect for tinkering.
iFixit's awesome. I actually almost just bought one of those. So just send me a free one, please.
Yeah, you will get one.
We're just going to talk about sending you one.
Yeah, and then you can tell Adam, see what you missed out on.
Yeah. I'll bring it and show him. So the reason I brought it up, I hear tell they may be using a structure sensor at the show. So,
hey, I tell you what, if you want to give them the 4 eyes, say, here, try this out. I'll get you guys another one.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. Yeah, and tell them that they can get great scans from it. I don't know. They probably said, "Oh, that guy, he's been bugging us."
We were talking about Elon.
Oh, that's right. We're talking about NASA.
We're talking about NASA.
So,
what's the point?
Well, the point is, see what you did. So, obviously, it was Elon's spacecraft that's supposed to deliver that thing. I guess that there was some trouble and it never actually went up. Is that right?
Well, I do know that NASA is not firing up the next series of rockets. They just outsourced everything.
Right.
They hired Boeing and SpaceX
Yeah. Well, but
to do it.
this 3D printer that has been in the news was supposed to go up, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it didn't make it up there. And I don't know if they rescheduled the launch, and it was because, what's the name of Elon Musk's rocket?
SpaceX.
SpaceX. So it couldn't send it up there. So it's not up there yet, but let's hope it does get up there. And
Is it supposed to 3D print its way to space, like a ladder to heaven?
I can visualize that. No, but what's interesting about that, obviously, and the reason I brought it up is that the SpaceX, he just, I want to say admitted, because I guess that's kind of identify that some of the components of the rocket engine that normally would never have been made this way was made with 3D printing or an SLS.
Right.
And so we are moving forward with fabricating, and he said there was huge advantages with it because it immediately allowed them to take design, test it, and actually use it. And they haven't been able to do that. And so NASA is also moving in that direction with their new rocket system. They're supposed to be on creating one as well. So
based
there's a
on
lot
their
of things.
funding, it's probably made out of like bubble gum and shoestrings, but
Hey,
Who, the Russians?
fingers crossed. No, I'm a big supporter of NASA. It bothers me severely that they don't get more money.
yeah, well.
Yeah.
Because we're wrecking this place. We need to get off.
Isn't that the premise of the
much.
movie done by Christopher Nolan? His next movie? What's the name of it?
I think yeah. I can't remember the name now.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be coming out in November. That looks like a
Was
good
it
movie.
Interstellar was the name
Interstellar.
of it.
There you go.
Interstellar.
Check it out.
Yep, and it has who's the
Coming
guy?
out in 3D.
No, it's the guy who was in Mud who won an Academy Award.
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey, yeah.
So
Does
he'll
he
be
have
in
his
it.
shirt off?
He'll always take his shirt off. He's
always
gonna do it.
His shirt off.
I mean,
Face.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt, but I have to run. I have to have another
All right,
meeting.
Brian.
No.
We appreciate you coming on.
Well, we could have been finished with this show, but shut up.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, see ya.
See you soon.
Bye.
All right, take care, Ryan.
See ya.
Okay, well that pretty much covers everything in the news and our discussion items. Now it's on the cool stuff. So we'll just go around the table. Brad, you got anything cool that you're working on down there? What? Oh, wake up, sleepyhead.
You have him on.
Oh.
There
Okay.
we go.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, what is it? I've got a new printer. I don't have a new printer. In sort of the rep wrap, I guess we still do non-resin printers too, probably in the show. The rep wrap world, I'm doing beta testing the MadeSolid 3. So Makers Toolworks is a company that makes some pretty nice rep wrap style printers, and they have a new one coming out. And so I have that. Just got the box from Kinko's or a little FedEx. So it should be interesting.
You have
play
to
with
build
that.
it yourself, or did it come assembled?
Yeah, it's build it yourself.
Oh,
The
well.
best kind.
Well, I'm actually supposed to write some instructions for it, so
Oh,
that's
the worst kind.
Wow.
worst
Yeah,
And
that sounds awful.
Can you
I'm just
tell
gonna give it to Chris because he's got lots of free
okay.
time.
Yeah.
No, you could totally give it to me. I've got a Mendelmax 2 sitting right next to me here.
Oh. So tell me this, what is the benefit that you see, like what is better about this Mendelmax 3 than the Mendelmax 2?
It's got a bigger number.
Well, I'm kind of a critic of the MadeSolid 2. I don't know. Some of the slide mechanisms that it was using maybe didn't pan out the way they thought it would.
You
Whereas
mean they're like prone to break, or they're not?
well, there's a lot of slop in them.
So they're not as accurate. Like, okay.
Well, I can
Like
say
the
on my
linear
Mendelmax
rails
2,
we
the extruder head on the Mendelmax 2 is actually a little bit wobbly, and I had to put a couple printed structures and some screws to hold just the tip of the extruder in place. Otherwise, when it's going around the XY plane, you're getting all this jitter.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be. What's interesting is they've gone sort of the all open builds, V-rail and open rail style linear motion components, which are it's a nice way to build stuff quickly. Actually, the little RP has a fork where you can make the Z stage out of open builds too. Like if you are unable to source the high wind rails. What's kind of weird about some of the RepRap printers now is a lot of them are, they're going towards, I think they're trying to compete with some of the more polished printers, and the way they're doing that is by sort of throwing off some of the RepRap goals. So you're seeing a lot more stamp metal, you're seeing a lot more water jet, laser cut metal parts, and I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing. It keeps them relevant. I don't know, it's kind of double-edged.
Right, the
one of the
RepRap community
original-
was all about reducing the number of vitamins, I believe the term was they used.
That's right.
Exactly.
Pretty cool. So Phil,
Yeah.
you look like you're falling asleep there, so I'm going to wake you up. So anything cool on your end other than the structure sensor? You can't use that one.
Lots of stuff. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, obviously, never mind, we'll skip you because you're going to go see.
I go to
the people
go see the Tested live show. Absolutely.
I know, that sounds cool.
October 25th.
Jealous.
Yeah, I think I can give you a small exclusive, which is we just launched the Structure Sensor accessories store this week.
Mm.
It's a soft launch. You guys get to know first. Shh.
Okay. So when you say you launch it, so by Friday when we're on 3D Review, can we talk about it?
Oh, it's out already. You can buy stuff today.
And you can
Cool.
go. You can go to where? Where can we go
It's
to?
not, that's structure.io.
So how long till we can buy 4 eyes?
Well, this is the first time I heard of this, so it's kind of funny that
But
This
for
is,
I
you have a
order
store and no one's told me about it. But
You gotta ask Mike about that one.
But
yeah.
4 eyes you can buy.
You can buy it right now.
Where do you go?
Where?
Yeah.
You go out to Square Market,
Square Market.
Slow 3D Creators,
Slow 3D creators.
Yeah.
You just look for 4
4 eyes, and there's a whole series of accessories. There's the quick connect, disconnect that I've heard the Occipital is still not going to make yet, so I'm the only one that has one, and it works
We're letting you.
fabulously.
Got
Yeah.
exclusives.
Yeah, and I got lens
Got stuff
caps.
that nobody else has.
Yeah, okay, enough of that silly.
Steve, what do you got?
Yeah,
What do you got
Steve,
for us? Any cool?
Well,
tech?
other than going back in time
You're
and,
like a wizard
and
in this
jostling.
whole thing.
Yeah. He's got
Like,
the
he needs
beard
like
going.
He needs to stay off IRC so he can write.
all right, so what I've been working on here lately, well, a lot of my time goes towards developing Creation Workshop, and I keep on adding different machine types and new features and things to it. And, a lot of companies approach me asking for customizations, and they're really not too hard to do. I'll make them a plugin, and I'll do some customizations and move controls around or hide this control or add a new control or whatever. And pre-script all these different G-code sequences to control their machines or do specialty drivers. So what I've been doing here lately is I've been working on a pro version of a plugin that basically allows printer manufacturers and vendors, or even pro consumers, to customize the look and feel of the software for themselves. So they could add new buttons up on there, and when you click the button, it could do whatever G-code sequence you want, or they could change the color scheme, or add graphics, or rearrange controls, or even create composited controls altogether. So I'm hoping that this is going to help usher in being able to more easily accompany different machine types and different vendor machines. So that's what I've been working on. It's probably about half done. I've got a long laundry list of features I want to put in there. And I'm putting in some other things too, like better object support generation. I'm doing some basic object editing functionality like CSG, constructive solid geometry, so you can create things like spheres and cubes and blah, 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 and add or subtract or union them all just to do some simple structures in addition to generating supports. So that's what I've been working on.
Wow, that sounds awesome. That sounds like you might be able to get some hopefully some funding too from maybe some actual manufacturers of the machines. And
Actually,
creation.
that's how I've been developing this. Is people will approach me to do this, and I'll do half their changes inside a custom plugin for them, and then half the changes in the new plugin, the Pro version plugin that I'm doing. So it's getting funded piece by piece. So.
Got it. Wow. And so you're on Creation Workshop is RC9, Release Candidate 9.
You know, I'm actually up to like version 38 at this point. RC9 is just like the last thing that. Well, you got to check out the forum. That's where I post all the latest versions. But I probably should update that RC9. That's like 6 months old at this point.
Yeah, because like I couldn't get mine to work yesterday, and I was like, I was working on it. So we got to go out to the forum at Build Your Own SLA, and then where do I click?
On the software forum on Creation Workshop. It's stickied up at the top.
Okay.
And I think the last one I linked in there is like 21 or 26 or something. But I can get you a later link here after the show.
Yes, please, and I'll go ahead and make sure it's in the show notes. Okay, well, thank you, Steve. So it's my turn.
Okay.
This is Ducati Girl.
Ducati Girl.
But she doesn't have her motorcycle.
Oh, girls that ride motorcycles, they're like unicorns.
I literally live with a motorcycle riding librarian.
A unicorn. You live with a unicorn.
Cool.
No, she's just a person.
Yeah.
I call her Shannon. That's her name.
This was a unicorn name.
Yeah, this was actually printed on the Form 1 in 2 pieces, and it's pretty hefty. I made it hopefully to match the dimensions of Velcro's. I don't know if you saw it. He printed a 100-piece fully detailed Ducati 1199. Is that correct?
1911.
1911 motorcycle.
Or, no, it might be 11.
I think it's 1199.
It's 1200. Yeah.
And actually, but it needs a writer. It needs a female writer. So I put this together, modeled it, and so I'm sending it off to Canada after our interview tomorrow. So we're actually interviewing Velcro, and he's going to tell us how he's created all these cool things. He's actually created a mech warrior, so it'd be kind of neat to see that too. So 10:30 tomorrow.
Velcro?
No, his name is Jackie Wan.
Oh, but you call him Velcro.
Velcro is his handle name, but yeah, his name. Either one.
I was going to say, if his name is Velcro, that is like a maker name if I've ever heard one.
No, that
is pretty sweet. Like, that's almost as good as Captain Crunch.
Yeah, so maybe we'll tell him to change it tomorrow. But we are interviewing him tomorrow live on Google Hangouts on Air. It'll also be on the podcast. So tomorrow morning at 10:30, if you're not doing anything, to find out about him. So that would be kind of cool. Yeah, right. Well, that's why nobody ever shows up for these things. So we got that. What else? Well, always things going on, but yes, let's turn it over to you, and then we can kind of close this down.
Check out on Kickstarter right now, there is a printer. This is where I think we're going to see some more growth, is FDM, applying the FDM concept, or FFF, clarify, and being able to have modular heads that you could put clay or whatever. So there's a printer going on Kickstarter right now. It's called the MM1, and it has like a modular head system, so you can like click in, a clay head or like a syringe head, so you could pump chocolate or whatever, and turn your FDM or FFF printer into a chocolate printer. Because it's fully modular, and then you can have it even has they have like a cylinder or a plunger attachment that goes on the side if you were going to print food or clay or ceramic.
It sounds really cool in theory, but I'm worried about in practice.
Yeah, I mean, but the concept is cool. That's where I think it's like, okay, how can we take something that's already there and just build on it and just keep pushing it forward. And expanding, like if you already have a machine like this, if you already own a machine, whether it's a Delta printer or like like Brad is building this Mendel Max 3 or a Mendel Max 2, being able to just swap out the head so that you can print even more materials.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
cool.
The MM1 on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
still live. I think it's got about a little over 20 days left.
Yeah, didn't you bring that up already on Friday, or?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so with that, does everybody had enough?
I have one more thing, if I'm allowed.
Well, we're in the announcements area, so that would be good if it's an announcement.
So I had the distinct pleasure of going to XOXO in Portland a couple weeks ago. It was a festival thing specifically around like independent creators and stuff, such as we.
We? You speak French? Oh.
Such as Occipital.
Such as Occipital, such as I think all of us talking right now, are where we make stuff. We make stuff by ourselves. Sometimes we make stuff in groups, but we make stuff. And the most important and arresting and I think meaningful talk that I saw there was by Anita Sarkeesian. She's a feminist frequency. She does feminist frequency. She gave a talk on the tactics that are being used to discredit her and so many other women online as part of this huge harassment campaign.
I've been reading about that.
The video is available now on YouTube of her talk, and it is tremendous. And she is quite the human being, and I highly recommend everybody watch it.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you just tell me her name so I can watch this?
Anita Sarkeesian.
Yeah, you already mentioned that. Yeah, and well, she's got a very terrible story. I mean, this is the one that was trolled.
Yeah, no, still to this day.
I know she is, and she just
constantly, all day, every day.
Yeah, because she speaks her mind. Yeah, it's a really sad story, but obviously she's a very strong character.
She talks about video games, like that's all she does, and people are so mad that they're threatening her family, actually calling her parents and stuff.
Yeah, I think she's got a daughter as well. Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Here it is. It's Anita Sarkeesian, Feminist Frequency, XOXO.
Feminist Frequency. Yes. Yeah, it's an awesome talk. I can't imagine just the I guess the grace under fire that she has is there's no way I would be that cool. There's just no way. So that's my important thing, I guess.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's been in the news, and especially in the tech type news, so I'm glad you mentioned it. My wife is a proud feminist as well, and I think we need more of it, and we need less of people not allowing other people to express their opinions without being threatened. And that's one of the negatives, obviously, of new technology. So let's move on to the announcements, and I want to thank 3dprintersforbeginners.com fairs_events. If you want to find out what's going on in the 3D world, they've got a full calendar, so I don't know who put it together, but head out to there. But I pulled some things off of there, I guess, in the Netherlands. On the 9th of October, there is Shaping the Future with Polymers for 3D Printing. That's where Brian's at. And then in Paris, I don't know if anybody was at the 3D printer show in London, but they're now moving to Paris, and that'll be the 17th and 18th of October. And then it'll be a few months later that it's actually going to come back to New York. And then we've got an Inside 3D Printer Conference and Expo in Santa Clara, which is the same one that we went to last year. So I guess it's in the same location on the 21st and 23rd of October. And then, hey, if you want to head to Moscow, I don't know if it's getting closer to the winter season. So in Moscow is a 3D Print Expo on the 23rd and 25th. So it truly is an international market. And the more and more people that we talk to, the more that we find out that there are a lot of people around the world that are doing this. So it's a maker movement that's not just in this country. And for those of you who have not seen the movie already, go out to Netflix, if you're part of Netflix, and watch Print the Legend. Obviously, we're all living a part of it, so we probably both have the tribulations and the angst of being in that industry. It's a fun movie, and it's a colorful movie, and I recommend it to anybody who's watching it.
It's
so
totally
without the ruin, I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
Totally in my queue. Netflix suggested it to me. I assumed Netflix suggested it to me because by the title I thought it was a movie about Hearst. and then I was like, oh, okay, I like Citizen Kane and Orson Welles, so they're giving me this William Randolph Hearst, movie. Then I was like, oh, hey, that's the other thing that I know a lot about.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, I think it's a fun movie. Chris and I both seen it. We've had some interaction about it in our previous weekly podcast. So yeah, take some time.
It's a good time.
And on the 29th, we're actually going to be in person. We're putting on a 3D in Medicine local seminar that will be live casted, and I have some guest speakers from Brazil as well as Florida to talk about radiology and the scanning technology behind it, as well as what it takes to make a 3D visualization application by the people down in Brazil, CTI. So if you don't have anything better to do between 6 and 8 p.m. PST, Pacific Standard Time, come join us.
It's free.
It's free. Free. Nothing. Zero.
Wait, I had to pay to get on here. It's free?
You
Yeah, I
didn't
want
pay.
my money back. Gosh.
You didn't pay me. You must have paid Adam. Okay. Well, I think that's about it. Unless anybody else wants to add anything.
Thanks so much to you guys, to our guests on our show, All Things 3D.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Listeners.
Yeah,
and
this is great. I love coming on here.
yeah, definitely
Yeah,
send
absolutely.
us your addresses so we can get you out those iFixit tool sets, because they have graciously given us those to give to our guests.
And they're
So we
collecting
definitely-
dust right now.
We want them to make it to you, so definitely
I'll
send
take
us
as
your
much free
addresses.
shit as you want to send me.
Yeah, awesome.
Well,
awesome.
Hey, actually, I've got this cool mouse pad too, because I know most of ours are like dirty, and
Well, why don't we have it at the Occipital office?
I'll send a whole bunch of them.
We need at least a couple.
Okay.
So, all right, guys. Well, signing off. This is October 8th, 2014, and this has been All Things 3D.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Oh no.